Brian B. with the Sunday Night Funnies. This is a continuation of we're having so much fun in an earlier podcast, our first podcast of the Comedy A to Z. We thought we'd just continue on with this and do a second one with it with Matt Harper here and Stu MCallister.
Mm-hmm. I would have called it more of a bitch fest then.
Bitch fest.
Yes.
Well,
and you're pretty solid with that name now, Comedy A to Z. You've got it on 2 episodes.
Two
I guess that's
episodes.
the name.
That works.
Yeah. So we were talking about audience. We're still talking about audience members?
Audience members, misconceptions, problems within the comedy world.
Oh, we were talking about new comics.
Sure.
And their misconceptions.
Mm-hmm.
About
Yeah, it's not just the audience's misconception of comedy. It's also comedians have a sort of a flawed conception of what to expect while doing comedy. Yeah.
Everybody thinks they can start getting paid after they've done 3 open mics.
Yes.
Like, how do I actually had a guy after 3 open mics was like, how do I start getting paid for this? And I'm like, well, get back to me in 3 years.
What's worse is when do I start getting paid? Not even like they're not even asking how or the process. They just want to know who starts paying me and when do I start getting paid.
Who's got the cash for me? Because I just did a solid 4 minutes up there, and I need to get paid.
And the ones that bring it up aren't even funny.
Right.
Yes.
No.
Yeah, because they're usually the delusional ones or they're big a-holes or whatever. Mm-hmm. So, yeah. Mm-hmm. And a good portion of the time, those are the ones who disappear quickly, too. Yeah. Like, they're around, like, they do gangbuster stuff for, like, 6 months or whatever, and then they realize, like, they're not going to get paid anytime soon. And it's the business end. The business end crushes a lot of people.
Yeah.
A lot of funny people. A lot of unfunny people. Yeah. Thank God for that.
Right, yeah.
Thank God.
When they finally go, yeah.
Sure.
They're not outside peddling CDs after the show or whatever. After their 10th open mic or whatever.
Right. I'm filming my special next week. Come out and see me.
Yeah.
No.
Or they don't want to drive, a couple hours to do a show. Go, that's what the job is the driving.
Yeah. You pay me to drive. I tell the jokes for free. You're paying me to drive.
Now, what's the longest trip you made for a show, driving show?
Driving-wise, I've been out to western North Dakota, probably. Okay. And I've been driven down to Florida, too, down to Jacksonville or Tampa. So, I mean, that's pretty far.
Yeah.
I think the one day, like, I drove back from the one Coral Gables or something like that down in Florida, and I was with DK Hamilton, and it was about 24 hours is what it was. Yeah, it was crazy. Yeah, and we just looked at each other and we were like, never again. Yeah. Never again. Because that was one of those gigs, too, of like we went, it was fun, we got paid, but, I mean, when everything was done and said, we probably lost money. Definitely, if you're factoring time, we lost money.
Sure,
I mean, this is a time when I could have been doing other things. I could have been at home or the day job or whatever else, but I'm out trying to slang jokes.
Yep.
So, Yep.
Yeah, when I first started, I did some stuff for Funny Business, and then I got sick and never went back to them. But I emceed over at Chaplin's.
Oh, wow. That was a long time ago.
Yeah. And I remember I got paid $90, and it's like I didn't break even because I drove each. There was no hotel room.
No hotel, so you're driving back and forth.
Yeah.
It was awful. That Billy. That was
Billy,
his name.
Billy,
Billy was awful. I mean, he always tried. He tried to like intimidate guys when they came in. Like he would say stuff to guys and be like a tough guy. He was like one of those fake mafia kind of people, and I knew that in advance. People had warned me about Billy. Mm-hmm. So what I did is I just messed with him about like Detroit sports. How about them Red Wings, man? They're really sucking shit right now. And he'd be like, yeah, they are. And then it was fine. So it was just one of those things. But you're just dealing with idiots a good portion of the time.
Sure. I have a funny Billy story. It was one of the shows we canceled because nobody bought tickets.
Sure.
And one of the shows, I had 4 people in the audience.
Okay.
And you know how big that room was. It was
huge.
Like a 200-seat venue.
At least.
And so they canceled one of the shows. They sent us home early, which is great because I didn't do a late show. I think it was we just did an early show on Friday and went home. And so Saturday night, we're wrapped up, and I'm sitting with the 2 other comics. Was new. That was my first really paid Funny Business gig.
Sure.
And I just said to those guys, one was Steve Sabo, and I said, is he going to pay us less because we did one less show?
Right.
Because I didn't know. Yeah. And they both kind of like didn't know either. They looked, and so we're sitting around at the bar. We're sitting at a table. He's at the bar just chatting it up, and he's not in a big rush to pay us.
Right.
And we're in his eyesight, but he's not making a move.
He's almost hoping you guys just leave.
Yeah, I think that's really what he wanted. And he kind of calls me over first.
Yeah.
And goes, come into my office. So I come in his office, and he's behind the desk, and he had this stack of money, and he kind of pushed it across to me. And I can't believe I said this because I go, is that all of it?
Is this all?
He goes, yeah, that's it. Okay,
Right.
good. I didn't count it in front of him. I just picked it up. And when I walked out, I counted it. And he paid us for what we're supposed to be paid.
Sure.
And I'm walking back, and one of the guys goes, did he pay you everything? Or I thought he said, did he pay you everything? What he said was, did he short you?
Right.
And I go, like, yes, he did.
Yeah, he did.
And he goes, son of a bitch. And I go, no. I should have let him go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because
Let him roar into the office.
he would have went in and just called.
Mother God.
Then he would have shorted up.
Right.
you know.
Yeah.
That's funny. Hilarious.
But yeah, it was.
Yeah. There's another venue that I've done where they have a history of canceling a show. So you're supposed to do 4, but they have a history of canceling the Late Show Friday. And so their method of operation is, okay, they'll be like, all right, we will pay you all of the money we're supposed to pay you, but we'll never have you back. Or you can take less and we'll have you back again. So it's just one of those things that, like, I mean, what are you supposed to say, right? I mean, it's gotten to the point where you're just like, all right, I'll never be back. See you later. Thanks.
Yeah,
Man,
now
burn
you can start cashing in all those since you're done. Like,
Yeah, yeah, I should. I'm
Yeah,
like,
just
well,
get me.
never again.
You should
All
do a
right.
farewell tour. All the rock bands are doing it. You know,
I should.
Greatest
no one will
hits.
Come out. No one will come out.
you
So
open and close with LMNOP.
That's
and,
right.
Yeah.
There we go. Thanks,
That's
everyone. Good night.
See you later.
So there's so many venues. I had a venue who was going to not pay me. They said, "Well, will you take a rain check?" And I said, "I don't know what that means.
Yeah,
What does
put
that
that in
mean?
the gas tank."
Explain that to me."
Yeah.
And they were like, "Okay, well, we won't pay you now, but we'll have you come back real quick." And I said, absolutely not.
Yeah.
Because it was a gig in Ohio. I knew I drove at least 5 hours to be there, and there was a hotel, and I mean that's why I took it. And I'm like, I'm not coming all the way to this hill jack town for nothing. So they made us perform for the staff.
Sure.
Because nobody showed up. So we performed for the owner, his wife, and like 5 staff members. And it was really awkward, but I'm like, I'm getting paid.
Yeah.
And I have never been back. And I'm okay with that.
Sure.
I am okay. I got paid. And again, that's one of those things I will tell everybody. Get paid. It's not my job to bring people in. Sadly, I'm not a name that people will come in like, oh my God, Stu MCallister is there. Let's go.
Yeah.
But so it is not my job. It's the venue's job to get people in.
Right,
I don't
yeah.
know
And
anyone in Ohio.
It is absolutely always necessary to know the terms that you're dealing
Yeah.
with before you leave. That way you have nothing to complain about once you get there. If then they decide to start pulling this nonsense,
Right.
whatever. But if it's up to the comic to decide whether it's worth it for them to make this trip, then you can't all of a sudden once you get there at the end of the
Change
day
it.
be like, well, this was a long drive and I didn't really sell any merch. So, I mean, that's on you to decide if it's worth it or not. So.
I was just featuring at that show, and the headliner was all frantic about it.
Yeah.
Like, well, what do we do? What do we do? And he was calling the booker and all. And I'm like, we're getting paid,
Yeah.
man. What are you talking about? We came here. We fulfilled our end of the obligation by being here and being ready to perform the show. Now, if you want to cancel the show, that's on you, but we're still getting paid.
Do you know the furthest you've gone without getting, like, knowing that you weren't going to get paid? Like, for like an open mic or
boy, I drove to Lexington, Kentucky, which I think is like a 7-hour drive
Okay.
one way. And I did a contest down there. And this was kind of like I was maybe 5 years in or whatever. And I did the contest, the funniest person in Lexington or whatever it was. And I got in. And they did it kind of like American Idol style of where they had judges and you went on, you performed, and when you were done, then the judges would critique you and talk to you. It was kind of weird. I kind of liked it. I sort of hated it because I wanted to tell them to all suck it.
Yeah.
But the first thing they did when I was done, they said, "You're too funny to be in this contest." And I was like, what does that mean? Like, it's not. There's no too funny to be in a comedy contest,
Sure.
right?
So we want mediocre people.
Sort of, but I think it was they were kind of upset because I wasn't local.
Yeah.
It was kind of like all businesses want like a contest like that to be full of locals because then they'll come in to see you. Like no one was in that room to come see me. I wasn't clearly. I mean, I felt like I was the funniest person who performed, but no one in that room was there to see me. So at the end of the night, like I lost. Yeah. And part of it too, they asked me why I was even there, and for me it was like because I want to work the room.
Yeah.
Like I don't care about this contest. I care about working the room and performing here and getting paid. Like I don't care if I win or not. You're going to lose when you do a contest. You will lose. There's funniest person Grand Rapids is starting tonight. There's going to be 80 people in this thing. 79 people are going to lose. What makes you think you're going to be the one to win it, right? Yeah. The odds are against you. So I don't ever plan on winning things when I go into it. So that I wasn't planning on winning it, but the end part for me was I'm going to get employed. I'm going to get a gig out of this.
Absolutely, sure.
And I never got a gig out of that.
And that's why Stu's retiring from
comedy. That's why I'm retiring. But it was one of those things of like I drove the 7 hours to get there. I did the gig, and then I drove 7 hours back. And that's kind of what comedy. I'd get up the next morning and go work. That's what it was. So
I think I drove somewhere to Middle Indiana somewhere to do a gig that was just, and that was touted as being like an audition. Like come down, do a guest spot at the beginning of the show or whatever, and then if you do great, we'll have you come back, and then we'll see how it goes.
There's a lot of shysters out there. There's a lot of guys willing to take advantage of the new guy and their hustle. Come do this, open for this person, we're not going to pay you, but you're going to get exposure. Everybody gets their exposure, and exposure doesn't put gas in the tank or whatever. So, it's one of those things of like, what are you willing to hustle for?
Right.
And a lot of that stuff I'm just not willing to hustle for anymore.
I heard somebody talking about whether or not opening or hosting for somebody famous would be considered a credit.
Not really.
And
I mean, you can say you
I
open for someone.
right.
I mean, you can say I opened for Chelsea Handler. It doesn't mean shit,
right? Yeah.
It's just one of those things of like I was on the same stage that night. I think ultimately, unless that person is taking you somewhere,
unless they asked you to do it,
right. Like locally, there was the thing about this comic going. I got to open for Ralphie May.
Yeah,
like Ralphie didn't pick you. You won a contest. You open up for Ralphie. There you go. He didn't pluck you out of a group of comics and said he didn't take you on the road with him after he saw you perform, right?
Sure.
If that night he saw you perform and he was like, oh my God, you're the greatest, and he took you on the road, then there you go.
Yeah.
But otherwise, you just happen to be on the stage.
Right. Yeah. Or you happen to be employed by the venue, or you happen to have booked the show yourself. Yes. And when you've booked the show yourself and you're saying I opened for this person, that's kind of rough.
I was fortunate enough to do the Oddball Comedy Festival a couple of years ago, which is a great festival, a lot of great comics on. But I can't say I was on the same stage as Amy Schumer.
Sure.
I mean, she happened to perform the same night, like 3 hours later.
Right.
But I never met her. She didn't see me perform. It would be some guys will do that though, and to me, I laugh because I mean, anyone who's in the know knows that that's garbage, right? It to like the lay person. Oh my God, you got to work with Amy Schumer. Mm-hmm. I sure did.
What's she like?
Oh, and she was great.
That's a real problem too, being starting to host now for people, like for touring comics, and having them have this list of people that they've opened for or worked with. Yeah. Like the people are already in the room.
Yes.
Like they bought their ticket, they're already here. They're not going to get up and leave if you didn't open for Amy Schumer or whoever.
I've been on Comedy Central, Last Comic Standing, and Live at Gotham.
Plus, you're setting the bar high when you do that too. They're expecting a lot from you then.
That's why I would say you've never seen this guy anywhere.
Yep.
He's from Michigan. So there you go. Oh my God, he's from Michigan. I believe it.
I'm from there.
Right.
All right.
I went through there once.
Yes, exactly.
Oh, I also hate that about like club comics that'll come through town that will ask me before they go up on stage, like, what's the nearest town?
The hick town.
Yeah, what's the hick town? What's the town most likely to do meth? What's the other? And then they just fill in the blank. Yeah, what's the nearest strip club and the name? Yeah, they have their set planned out and they just cookie cutter in the towns nearby, and which is great. It works for them. But as a local comic from that town, and hearing people do it often, it hurts my heart every time because people in the audience will be like, "Oh my God, I've been there. I know this," and then they get a standing ovation because someone mentioned the nearby town.
I did a gig recently I was still featuring in the headliner. He did the same kind of thing. He got all this information. He got info on the town. So the show's done. I thought I did great. Guy comes up. He's like, "You were really funny. but he did his homework. And I'm like, no, he didn't. There's no homework. He just found out you guys put in a new roundabout, and he joked about it for 10 minutes.
Right.
It's not homework. It's stupid. It made me angry.
Yeah.
It made me angry.
Me
that
too.
Like he thought I was funnier, but this guy did his homework. I'm like, oh, go fuck yourself.
I saw Jimmy Pardo once at Grins, and I love Jimmy. And
Jimmy's
I've talked to him afterwards. He's a great guy.
Yes.
And I was sitting up front. I was with a date, and it's all crowd work he does.
Yeah.
And he was talked to me through most of the night. And I bought a CD after the show.
Uh-oh.
It was recorded in Houston.
Yeah.
He was talking to another Brian in Houston. It's kind of like I didn't feel bad about because I know comedy, but I could know if somebody who wasn't from the background.
Right.
They would, he just built the whole show around me.
Right. He's got the sticks. It's crowd work, but it's made crowd work.
Right,
Like
yeah.
he already knows.
Yeah.
And of like you're customer 1, you're customer 2, and this is what we're doing.
Right. And even as a comedian, I'm still amazed by callbacks. I think they're magic.
They're the
it's like
best.
the greatest of all time.
I love them.
But as like a regular person, that's got to blow their minds. Like
Yes.
the idea that they think that they're coming up with this stuff spontaneously and it's all off the top of their head, and they go through a 30-minute set or a 45-minute set, and then all of a sudden they're dropping jokes they had back in the beginning of the set, like it's just not, and like that must blow people's minds.
It is the preconceived notion that we are just coming up with everything off the top of our heads. That we're just having a conversation that we're thinking of right now. Like I've spent hours and hours and a lot of time working on this stuff.
Yeah.
So no, it is not off the top of my dome.
Right.
And the ones who do, like the open micers who do off the top of their dome, they're awful.
Yep.
Like there's some guys who they're awful. Like Todd Barry and Big J Okerson, like a lot of the Ian Bagg. They do all these tours where the show essentially is like all crowd work. Mm-hmm. They're the rare individual. Like I feel comfortable dealing with someone, like dealing with a heckler or being in the moment.
Sure.
But for me to try to do a whole headlining set with just like, hey, I'm riffing up here.
Right, yeah. It just
I would
becomes
be uncomfortable.
It becomes like, oh, look at this guy's shirt, huh? Everyone, huh? See that guy's shirt?
Yeah.
And I'm just like, okay, we get it. Let's get to the jokes.
Did you, on Twitter today, I don't know if you guys saw this or not, Roy Wood Jr., who I think is one of the greatest guys working right now, he's on The Daily Show as well. Someone asked him, like, what do you think is the decline of comedy? And he essentially said, old-timers not writing new stuff.
Okay.
So he feels like a good portion of, like, road hacks of just going out and they continue to do the same hour or whatever every time.
Yep.
And then crowds are catching on to that of like, hey, I was here last time and it was kind of the same. And I'm like, and because I've seen that hosting at Grins,
Yeah.
I'll see a guy come through a couple of years. I'll be like, because it is the same stuff.
Sure.
Yeah.
I get it. And I would get why an audience member would be mad and angry about that. Of like, I've paid $10, $15, $20 to come see you, and I get the same shtick that I saw last time. Like, you wouldn't go to a movie and then expect it to be completely different, right?
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So, like, if you go see a movie again, you'd be like, oh, this is what I expect. But
Right.
comedy is different.
Right.
Like, it should be.
And
Should be different.
that's what's great about having when a headliner that comes through often, having a different feature each time
Sure.
makes it a new experience, at least in some way, part of the show, which is nice for the audience too. So like whenever I have someone come back to my room, I always try to make the show up front as different as possible.
Yeah.
I have a couple people open
Yes.
and then a feature that's never been to the room before, and just try to change things up enough where just in case somebody happened to have come, 2 years apart to both shows and maybe the headliner didn't write a
Cheap
new
or
hour
whatnot.
or so.
I think a lot of headliners who bring their own guys, they can do it for like a year.
Yeah.
And then after that, then it becomes like, you're going to have to bring a different guy
Yeah.
or something. So the show's got to be different.
Mm-hmm.
If guys aren't writing enough. Like, some people, again, Louis C.K., I know he's in the public eye right now for the wrong reasons, but I mean, he was a guy for the longest time. Like, every year he's cranking out a new hour.
Oh, yeah.
And so everyone is trying to hold you to the same standard as Louis C.K.
Sure.
And I'm like going, I'm not that guy.
Right.
If I can write a new 20 minutes every year that I think is good, I feel like I've accomplished a lot.
Right.
And maybe I'm not as strong as a writer as other guys, but the expectation of a brand new hour that's crushing, it's the rare person who can do that.
Right, yeah.
Well, that's another part of the misconception where it's like people just think you're taking off the top of your head, like you mentioned, or they write it out and they're done. No, you write it and you rewrite it and you condense it and change and then the timing of it, working on. That's why guys like Seinfeld and Louis C.K. they go to these small clubs and try out material because you got to try it before a live audience. They, they get the feel of it and they'll keep on working it.
Sure, and I imagine with the amount of new folks that you see come through, that you'll see people that will insist on doing new jokes every time they come, and I hate that. I hate
not
seeing.
helpful to them.
No, it's not. That's not how you craft a joke. That's not how you fix, edit, and rewrite your jokes. It's never going to get any better than that one time you told it, and then that joke's just gone forever.
Right.
And I hate it when I see a new comic come through that will that just they throw away a set. They're like, well, I did that already. Next week,
Burned it. It's over.
On to the next, and I'm like, wait, there was potential for these jokes. Even these jokes that didn't hit really, there's something there.
Change it.
And they're moving on to something.
Or they think they got that set already.
Yeah,
no, it's
gold, baby.
Work, right.
Moving on.
Just because something worked this one night doesn't mean it will work the next night, and vice versa. Just because it ate it tonight doesn't mean it won't work again. So you performed in front of 10 people at an open mic. Don't trust these 10 people.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
Especially if they're half of them your friends, because they're going to laugh at you.
Half of them are comedians who are either laughing because they like you or they're laughing because of how terrible it is, and they like to see you bomb on stage.
I get more enjoyment out of watching people eat it.
Yeah.
Right now. It's I don't know what it says about me as a human being.
Sure.
I don't know what it says about me as a comic. I love it when a guy's up there eating, particularly when it's someone who I know is funny.
Yeah.
Like I know they're good and they're just up there dying, and it's the greatest thing I've ever seen.
Sure.
Schadenfreude or whatever, right?
Yeah, yeah.
I don't know how you continue to run an open mic, Brian. You've been doing it 10 years, and I would shoot people.
Oh,
because I did it for a long time at Grins, and just having to deal with these idiots who think they're going to be the next Kevin Hart or Seinfeld or whatever, and there's not grounded reality.
Yeah, it's I'm heavily medicated most of the time.
Yeah,
so,
that's it, man.
No, we were talking about that.
Non-prescribed drugs.
My favorite one of eating it was this, and I can always tell when a comic is going to eat it because when they're asking me for stage time in an email, they're trying to be funny in their email.
Oh, God.
Like they're trying to impress me, and I just know they're going to be a train wreck. And it was this kid from Muskegon. I don't remember his name. He only did the show the one time. And he's like, "Oh, this is gonna blow you away. You've never seen anything like this." I'm like, "Oh my God, this guy's gonna be bad."
Yeah.
And he rented a room at the hotel. He didn't ask me for a room. I don't think he knew that they had those available. He was just from Muskegon anyway, so I wouldn't give it to him.
Sure.
Right. But he wanted a room because when he came on stage, he had a wig on. And he was a black comic, and he had white face.
Oh, God, I remember that.
Were you at that show?
I was there for that.
Oh, my God.
It was the worst of all time.
It was the worst.
It was not good.
Now, even before the show, there was a comics table at Riverfront. You guys know it. It was in the back corner. Yeah. And he passed out knock-knock jokes that he typed up. And, and there were there were pages, several pages.
Jeez.
And it was kind of like, this is my brilliance.
Yeah.
It was like written on a
your
sixth grade
mental health
level.
issues. That's what it is.
And he'd get up on stage, had the white face and the wig, where people think they wear something funny, it makes them funny. We've had a few of those.
Yeah.
And he was just eating it, and then after a while, he held up a picture of O.J. Simpson, and he's got a leather glove on, holding up. And this is like 10, 15 years later.
Yeah.
Yeah, it wasn't 94.
Real timely, real poignant material.
Too soon.
And he's holding up, he's going, innocent. And the audience were guilty. And even the black comics were getting mad at this guy because he's making the race look bad.
It was awful humor that he thought was going to work. In his brain, things are twirling. It's going to be, this is going to be great. And then it's the exact opposite of what they thought was going to happen. And then they disappear.
He was the only guy I had to physically take the microphone away from. Like, you're done. You're. You
got to get the hook. You got the Sandman out there.
But he never asked me for time again. Because he had this where he thought he was just going to... And it was just the complete opposite.
I do like seeing people do like silly and fun things when they're out there having a great time and they're really enjoying themselves and they're trying something new and unique, but there also are boundaries for that. Like there's clearly you got to know your audience and you have to understand what a joke is and why you're up there in the first place, because that clearly was just madness. Is what, and I feel like that's half of open micers anyway. They're either really genuinely funny and they have something to prove to themselves or they think that that they're going to be great and do this for a while, or there are people who are like legitimately like mentally ill that need a place to vent their
illness.
Yeah, like
some names come to mind, but
right,
yeah.
right. And I mean, I guess they both have their place. You know what I mean? It's good to see somebody bomb every once in a while. It kind of
it's fun to see like
Schadenfreude.
Yeah, lets you know it can happen. You know what I mean?
I remember at Riverfront, Garrett and Andy Bledsoe did something where they, like, I think Garrett was an audience member and Andy was on stage, and I can't remember what the interaction was, but they went beyond the confines of the stage.
Yeah.
Sure.
You know, they used their imagination. They weren't limited to the space that they were in, you know.
Yep.
Every now and then somebody will do something like that, and I think that's what keeps me going when you get somebody new who does something like that, or somebody you never heard of comes and does a set, and like, wow,
They surprise you.
there was some really good stuff in there.
Yeah, like
you know?
Josh Courtney will do like weird sketches and stuff on stage and like bring props with him, or Kuban used to come up and have he'd have a pre-recorded set where he'd play the audio and then drink a glass of water while the set was playing over the audio system and stuff. Just weird stuff that's fun and goofy. I like that, but obviously some people are a little too much.
No, I appreciate that stuff too, because it's like they go beyond. You know, there's this funnel, narrow view. Like, oh, I got to do dick jokes, or I got to do whatever. You know, whatever's current, and you know, they don't think beyond that. Finding something funny that isn't supposedly funny.
Right. Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. There's too much edge. People are trying to be edgelords and try to, I don't know, peel back the audience and make them feel something.
They confuse like First Amendment rights with being funny.
Yeah.
Like, you have the right to say whatever you want.
Yeah, you're allowed to say it,
but you don't have the right to have people laugh and find you funny, or for the venue to have you back.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
You're censoring me. No, this is a business, and I don't want you to talk about race humors or sexist things or say these words or whatever.
Yeah,
so it's still a business. Comedy's a business.
I've had to tell people that they were no longer welcome back. Like when I was running my open mic, I had to tell a couple of people that, like, we're done here. Like, your views on comedy are clearly differ from mine and from the rest of the venue, and people got to be careful. They got to, there's boundaries to this stuff too.
Sure.
Well, I've been physically threatened 4 different times by comedy.
Yes.
We just tell dick jokes. That's what we do. I remind people we're not curing cancer.
It's supposed to be fun, people.
We're telling dick jokes. All right. God bless America.
We got a couple minutes left. Any things you want to get across to somebody who's thinking about going into comedy, haven't done it yet, you know, or something along that lines, you know, what they should know? Name like 3 things they should know before they do that. I mean, and I'm sure it's things we've already kind of talked about.
Sure,
but you have to,
I mean, first of all, it would probably be don't. Just
there's enough of us out there.
Yeah,
come on, man.
Just don't. But then if you get past that and still feel compelled to do so, I would say, just start like take it easy. Like, realize that you're not going to skyrocket to fame, and there's a method to all of this. And if somebody who's been doing it longer than you tells you something, you should probably listen. Like, they're not trying to damage your career as an open micer. They're probably trying to give you some helpful hints.
If people are giving you a suggestion, it's because they think that you're funny and they want to help you be funny. I'm not going to help someone that I don't think is funny or whatever. Like, I wouldn't even talk to them.
Right.
Let them go away on their own.
I mean, watch that person on stage once to make sure that their opinion is worth something. But but if somebody who you think is genuinely funny, you know, suggests something to you, then seriously consider it, because there's a lot of people who have their own way already plotted out, and they don't care who gets in their way or who gets involved with it. This is how it's going to happen. And I think that causes a lot of guys to just crash and burn and never do it again. So, you know, which is fine. Yeah.
I think I would tell guys to, like, have fun with it. Like, comedy can be awful. It can be very, very awful. And so I have to remind myself that it's still fun. And when it becomes not fun, that's when you need to stop. So that's not fun.
And don't be a dick.
And don't be a dick.
Yeah,
don't be a dick.
True.
Don't be a dick. Have fun.
There you go. So that's it right there. That's all you need to know about comedy. And
I would tell people to listen to the Elemental podcast as well.
And
another episode podcast. That's
there you go.
Really
Those 2 podcasts.
Helpful hints all throughout both.
The only ones you need to listen to.
there'll be a quiz on them later on. So
That's right. Correct.
All right. Well, thanks, guys. Matt
Thanks,
Harper,
Brian.
Stu
Appreciate it.
MCallister.
Thank you very much.
This will be the part 2 of the 2-part.
That's great.
And we'll have you guys back again sometime down the road.
Sure.
come up with something else to talk about, whatever's in the news, be it Louis C.K. or Tiffany Haddish or whoever.
Oh, boy.
Hey.
Latest trends. So I've been Brian B. Thanks for listening or watching, and we'll talk to you again soon.
Thanks.